YouTube, what's going on? What's going on? Welcome to Wealth Wednesday. The time is now 8:04. Thank you for joining us. So, how's everyone doing this week? Hope all is well. We got a really cool episode today. I don't know if you guys saw the post I had on IG, but we're going to be talking about boundaries today. And, part of Wealth Wednesday isn't just about finances. It's not just about making sure that we have, our money in order. It's about all of the things that you interact with on a daily basis. Some of us have jobs that we don't have safe boundaries around. Some of us have relationships that we don't have safe boundaries around. There's a book that I've been reading this week, and we're going to go into it, but it's been a life changer. And I've actually recommended it to probably 7 people already. And I just got the book last week. It's from an author that my wife actually knew about before I did. And I never knew that she had a book, and she's been known for doing this type of work. So it's just interesting that everything comes around full circle. So I'm gonna put that down. I don't need to hear that. The volumes look good. All right. I don't understand why my my IG batteries are it's like dimming or something. That's so weird. All right. Anyhow, so today we are talking about boundaries. I'm gonna post up the book that we're gonna look at right now. Let me post this up. Here we go. Boom. That's the book. It is called Set Boundaries, Find Peace, A Guide to Reclaiming Yourself by Nedra Glover Tawwab. So if any of you have actually ever heard about her, and I'm actually going to pull her up on our YouTube here. Let me share my screen real quick and get this going over here too. I don't know why the screen keeps dimming out. It's really weird. I don't know what's going on with that. Okay, let me pull up Set Boundaries and Peace. Boom. Quick Google search. If you Google search Set Boundaries, Find Peace, it pulls up very quickly. So we're gonna pull this up and share this screen real quick. But I have to keep on doing that. That's very awkward. Okay, stop sharing. Boom. Okay. All right, let's hope I don't have to keep doing that. All right, so let me share my screen on YouTube so you guys can see what I'm doing here. Share screen. Share screen. Okay, cool. Share window. Set boundaries. Okay, so this is the book, y'all. This is the book, Set Boundaries, Find Peace. Okay, now one of the reasons why I love, always being connected to information, whether it be, books like this or just history in general or any historical reference books or whatever. I just like information because I feel like while we're on this planet, it's our job to get as much data points as possible. It's our job to get as much information as possible because these are the types of things that we need to use to grow ourselves and to grow the next generation. We're seeing, things happening in Ukraine. We're seeing things happening across the world. We're seeing folks really coming out of their skin and doing what they do. And all of that is because, again, people they're using learned behavior. They're using generational curses. And one of the things that we set up and talked about this in the post was how to break generational curses. So Instagram, I'm going to do you a favor. I don't know why this thing keeps on dulling. Hold on one second, okay? Give me a second. Let me see why that's happening. I don't know why that's happening. Okay. Well, hopefully it works out. IG, you're always weird, so I'm not really pressed about you. Okay, so one of the things that we were talking about was breaking generational curses, right? Why is a book like this something that would be important for breaking a generational curse, you say? Well, here's my simple solution for that. When you think about generational curses, what you're talking about really is habits that have been formed before you were born, that were instilled in you while you were still growing up, that then learned or that you relearned into your own self. So anything that was formed before you were born, that was instilled in your parents, that may not have been positive, that they then instilled in you indirectly, that's considered a generational gift or generational curse. Some of us have generational gifts where our family has been, educated, or they've been into, learning about wisdom and learning about things that are important, whatever it may be. And all of those things are an important part of generationally being here. Cool. As a matter of fact, if you think about all the positive qualities you have that came from your parents, those are generational gifts, right? Now, a generational curse are those same qualities that may not be positive. That's all it is. Whenever you have negative qualities that were passed down from generation to generation, that is technically considered a generational curse. Okay. Now, how do you go about solving that? I'm actually going to let Instagram do what it's doing. I'm going to see if it actually fades out. Did. Okay. Lock screen. Did do that. Okay. Instagram literally faded out into a lock screen. That's comedy. So yeah, when you think about all of those negative qualities, right? That's really what a generational curse is. And is that something that can be changed and reversed? It is. Any curse or gift can be reversed. Think about it this way. There are people who have very well off to do parents who have really good money habits and were raised in the right way, and then they decided to do drugs, get addicted, do these types of things, and then they lose all of their wealth, or they just have a toxic relationship going forward with life because everything was too easy for them, and maybe they just had no really understanding of life. That happens. That's an actual thing. So for us, we've got to look at all of the positive things that we can get generationally. And if we don't have a lot of those things in our family, it's important for us to go outside of our families to find it from anywhere possible, whether it be books, elders, folks in church, folks at work, wherever you can find wisdom. Wisdom is unadulterated. It comes from any source as long as you can see it. So this is one of the books. Let's talk about this book. And we're going to go into a few of the chapters that I found to be very, very important. The chapter I was just reading, and we'll do this in order of importance, right? The last chapter that I was just in, which was chapter 10, I believe. Let me see, I'll pull it up. Chapter 13. Chapter 13, okay? This is the chapter on work, okay? Now, how many of you think that you have a healthy boundary when it comes to work? And it's very simple to know if you do. Do you work overtime? Do you work when you're home, supposed to be spending time with your kids, with your wife, or with your husband? Do you take on extra tasks at work that others aren't given because you feel obligated to do that, but then it's causing you to have either a lack in performance or no actual real time for yourself to unwind and do the things that you need to do in this life? A lot of us think that working hard means that we're doing the best work that we should be doing. And sometimes that's not the case. There's such a thing as overworking. And that's one of the things that you have to be careful of, is making sure that you're using your time wise, especially now. This is 2022. You have the opportunity to learn new skills, the opportunity to work from home, the opportunity to grow a business. You can do so many things right now. And if you're spending all of that time in a boundaryless environment, meaning that you're not putting things in the right place and in the right time, it's going to impact your overall performance. It's going to impact your overall ability to get through life in a successful way, in my opinion. Because again, if everything you're devoting to yourself is literally for somebody else's effort, somebody else's goals and perspective, that's not necessarily helping you. Think of anyone that's not working for themselves, right? If you spend 12 hours a day, right, working, that means you have 12 hours after that job is finished for sleep, food, and spending time with loved ones, right? So half of your day is literally given to work, and the other half is given to sleep and eating, doing all the other things you have to do. Cool. If you have an unhealthy boundary, and I used to have this when I was working at MetLife. I remember waking up, getting to work at around 10 o'clock in the morning and working till 10 at night, right? Which is a full 12 hours I would work every day. That was like clockwork. And at the time, I didn't have a wife, didn't have a daughter, didn't have a mortgage, didn't have any of those things. But, I had this desire to want to just be successful, and it led me to burning out. Like often, there were many nights where I had to go out with my buddies after work just to get a couple of drinks, just to kind of like chill out and cool down, but then wake up and do the same thing the next day. That was a very rough life for me, just so you know. Like I wasn't having enlightened moments. It wasn't as productive as I am now. And I realized that I was burning the candle on both ends in a way that was not healthy for my body, right? So for folks who are doing that, understand that life is not about just working really hard at work. You can work hard at a lot of things. You can work hard at being a parent, work hard at being a sibling or a spouse, work hard at being a friend, work hard at being a child. You can work hard at a lot of things. Work hard in your home or wherever. You're always going to work hard if you're a hard worker. But devoting your time is really what's important here, is how you devote your time. And setting boundaries around that's important. So one of the things the book talks about is how to set actual boundaries and hold yourself accountable to them. Now, I don't know how many of you have done this. I know that my wife has told me that I'm pretty good at setting boundaries. I would say that I'm decent. I don't know why or how that came to being, but I think maybe being the youngest kid in my family at the time, it was important for me to set up what I knew was mine. Hey, Auntie, what's going on? Good to see you, dear. You say hi to the room. What's going on, baby Mexico? What up? What up? Kermit Thomas, what up? What up? Agents NYC. Okay, what's going on? Emo music. Hey, what's going on? Aaron, what up? What up? Yeah. So, for me growing up, I always had to have boundaries because I was youngest. So everyone always had stuff, and I needed to make sure that whatever little bit I had was for me. So I was always good at saying, hey, this bag of chips is mine, or hey, this toy is mine, or whatever. Um, but as an adult, I realized that skill that I learned as a kid was very important. It was very important because it allowed me to understand what my needs were as a child. And that grew with me as I became an adult. Like even now, there are things that happen in my daily day where I would say, hey, I'm not comfortable doing that. Or I would say no to this or no to that. My wife knows that I always say no to stuff. I say no more than I say yes. And that's not because I don't want to do certain things, but because I have a good understanding of self and who I am and what I can do and what I'm able to do. Like I know what I'm not comfortable doing and I don't want to do that. And that I'm very comfortable telling somebody no because no is not an indictment on that other person. It's more of an awareness of yourself. And that's what this book talks about. She talks about why it's important for us to be true to ourselves. If you really don't want to do something, you shouldn't be doing it. And that's not just for work, that's for life in general. Like if your coworkers are like, hey, let's go out for drinks after work, and you're not feeling it, you shouldn't feel peer pressure to go. Like you should be able to say, no, I'm not interested in going. Or if a guy keeps hitting on you and he's like, hey, can I get your number? Hey, let's go out for dinner. Hey, can we go on a date? Can we go get coffee? Da, da, da. And you're not interested in him. As a woman who is aware of her boundaries, you should say, hey, I'm actually not interested in you in that way. And I'd prefer if you would not ask me to go out anywhere with you because I'm not interested now and I won't be interested in the future. As a matter of fact, if I'm interested in letting you, I'll let you know. If I'm interested in taking that offer, I will come to you and let you know. Otherwise, just assume that what I'm saying is what I'm holding to. Period. Oftentimes we allow things to happen that don't need to happen because we don't want to break off and make someone feel bad. And this isn't about other people. When you have laxed boundaries, folks will treat you that way. They won't really take you seriously. If you say that you don't support something and then 5 minutes later you're changing your tune, well, we're not going to really trust what you're saying. And that's really the most important thing. Like you need to be sure of your boundaries. You need to understand, hey, if this is not what I am doing, I'm not doing that. And you have to hold yourself to that standard. That's really the most important thing here. Whenever you say that there is an ultimatum, like let's say you have, someone that continues to, come to your desk. So we're just talking office situations right now because most of us are working, right? Someone comes to your desk to gossip about work stuff, right? And you're not interested in work gossip at all. Well, the book talks about this. She says, hey, if you're not interested in participating in gossip at work, then whoever's coming to your desk to gossip with you, you need to tell them, hey, I need you to leave my desk if you're going to talk about gossip because I am not interested in that. I don't want to partake in that. That's not something that I want happening at my desk. So maybe you can take that somewhere else, or we can just change the subject. Like literally making your needs known. And the way that the author talks about it is she uses 3 different ways of doing this. The words I need, I want, or I expect, right? When you're setting boundaries, you have to be very clear about what you're trying to say. And it's important that you understand what your needs are because you can't set a boundary if you don't know what the need is that you're setting a boundary around. Right? So for example, let's say you're married and you have a need to, overshare your situation with your siblings or with your family members or whoever it may be before you talk to your husband or your wife about it. Okay. If that's your issue, well, it's important that you realize that oversharing is a breach in certain relationships because instead of you talking that out with the person that you're oversharing about, you should be doing that with your actual partner or person, whether that be a parent, a spouse, a sibling, whoever. And a lot of folks that get into trouble with oversharing, they get into trouble because they're spending more time doing that than actually fixing the problem, right? And that's kind of where the boundaries come in, where you would say, hey, I want you to only share things about our relationship, with people that we have both agreed to disclosing it to. Like, don't talk about my sex life with your best friend, or don't talk about, our intimate arguments with your parent or with your child. One of the biggest egregions, and this is something that a lot of West Indian parents will understand, when parents talk to their kids like they're their friends, That's actually a breach of boundaries. It's a breach of boundaries. And it actually can cause later on issues for that child when they grow up to become an adult. And most of us never knew this. That's actually an issue. And I can ask you, how many of you have had your parents talk badly or talk to you about grown folks' issues when you were a kid growing up, whether it was you were a teenager or you were youth or whatever? And you're like, I don't even understand or have the mental ability to understand this problem. That is an issue. And it actually causes traumatic responses to children that when they become adults because they continue that same generational curse and they'll continue to do that with their kids. So parents treating their kids as their best friends is actually detrimental to that kid's development because you're not allowing that kid to be a child. You're forcing them to be in parent business when all they want to do is play. If you, I have a 1 year old, almost a 2 year old. If I start talking to her about what my wife and our issues are together, like if I start talking to my kid about that, saying, "Oh, your mom is this, or your mom's doing that," da, 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 my baby will look at me like, "Dad, dad, 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 what are you doing? Like, let me be a baby. I want to go and pull cords out of things. I want to go and throw blocks. I want to go and drive my little car into things. I want to go and find anything that my hands can find and play." Why are you talking to me about you and mom's problems? I don't care about that. I am a baby. Let me be a baby. And it becomes more nuanced when these children grow up and they're 11, 12, 13, and you're disclosing things to them that isn't their business because now you're forcing them to be adults before their time. One of the things that the author talks about is when you tell the little son who, let's say the husband left the wife or the wife leaves the husband, whatever, whatever, and that son now is the man of the house, right? They say that when you tell that son, hey, you're the man of the house now, and you give him that responsibility, you have now removed his ability to be loved on by you as a son and elevated him to a position of adulthood when he's still a child. Therefore, removing his ability to be innocent and his ability to learn and grow from you as a child and get loved on you as a child. That causes scarring when you move from child to adult, having to be that child that is now the mother of your spouse or the mother of your siblings or the father of your siblings or the male figure in the household when you're still 12, 13, 14 or the woman figure in the household when you're 13, 14, 15. That is not a thing that children should ever do, and it leads to children having resentment when they become adults because they were going to ask their mother and their father, hey, how come you didn't love me as a daughter, as a son when I needed it when I was a kid? Like, it's a real thing. So we have to know how these things began so that we can learn how to fix them, right? Author talks about it. One of the things that we have to talk about boundaries is when it comes to friends, right? There are certain friends we say some friends come, some friends are here for now, some here for the lifetime. There are certain friendships that are toxic that you have in your life right now, right? And you have to ask yourself this question. Does this friendship benefit me in a positive way, or a neutral way, or a negative way, right? 3 areas. Has to be one of the 3 areas. Can't be anything else, right? If this relationship benefits you in a positive way, you should keep them. If it's neutral, well, you can see how long that goes and run that out. But if it's a negative friendship, you got to learn to let those go until they can turn into neutral or positive, because those are also areas in which your boundaries are being loosed. They're too loose. Think of it this way. If you have a girlfriend, and these are for the ladies, if you have a girlfriend that continues to steal people's men, every time you bring your man around this girl, she starts to flirt with them, do all this, that, and the third. And you're like, wow, I can't bring any men around you because every man I bring around you, you're trying to flirt with them. Like, I don't like that. That's a toxic trait. Boom, boom. The longer you keep that woman around in your life, the more opportunity she's going to have to steal your man. And people don't change overnight. So it's like, why would I want to keep a person like that around me and be close and be in my spaces when that's the behavior that they're going to exhibit? If I have a husband, I might be okay with my husband hanging out with this girl who's my friend, who's always going to flirt with him and try to, get in his face and do whatever. May not be the best type of friend to have, and vice versa. Let's say you have, if you're guys, let's say what's up, you have a guy, let's say you have a friend who always gets into fights. Every time you go to the bar, you go to the club, whatever, is always, over aggressive, trying to fight somebody in the gym, trying to fight somebody and whatever. And that's just the way that this person is. And you're not into that. You don't want to get into fights with people. That's not something that's interesting to you. You may want to distance yourself from a person like that, because if you don't, you might get yourself into trouble. You might go to the bar with this person one day, they get into a brawl, and then you want to go defend your friend. And now you're going to get shot or stabbed or get into an altercation that you don't need to get into. It's people that do those types of things that you have to say, is this what I want? Is this okay for me? Because if it's not okay, you have to set a very clear boundary with this and say, hey, friend that likes to fight, I like you as a friend, but I do not like the way that you fight. It concerns me when I go out with you that I'm not going to be safe because you're going to do something that's immature or reckless that can cause to us getting into an altercation that could lead us to both be dead or in jail. And I don't want that. So it's either you stop doing that when we go out or you and I can't go out anymore. It's a very specific statement. Like, I'm not talking about this person and their decisions. I'm saying, hey, it's either this is what I want. I need you to stop being this way when we go out, or else the result will be that you and I will no longer be going out. You can call me on the phone. We can be friends in other ways, but going out is something that I'm not doing with you, right? That's setting a very clear and healthy boundary with your friends in a way that will show, hey, there is an outcome to the decisions that they make. And you're going to decide what happens best for you going forward. These are the kinds of conversations that we have to learn to start having in a very amicable way. And remember, there's always going to be pushback when you're setting boundaries with other people. Always. There's never a time where you're going to set a boundary that impacts you and that impacts other people where they're just going to take it like, okay, great. That's a boundary. Okay, cool. I'm going to accept that. It doesn't work that way. Ask anybody when you were growing up and you were 17, 18, 19, and you wanted to go out and you asked your parents, hey, can I go out tonight? And they would say no or yes or da-da-da-da. They did not really handle, most parents, not all, most parents don't handle the transition of kids going from, children under 18 to children 18 and over. That's a very hard transition for a lot of parents. They don't know how to stop parenting and to start just accepting certain decisions that these kids can now make because they're no longer kids. They're adults in the eyes of the state, adults in the eyes of the world. They can make decisions. They can go to jail. Like, you're an adult when you go to jail. That's my thing. If you can go to jail, you're an adult. Parents don't always give their children the freedom to make those decisions and to have that autonomy that they require to grow and to be healthy adults. And that's something that as parents going forward, as the younger generation, we have to take into account that for our kids. When they want to express independent behavior, where they want to decide what type of food they eat or decide, when they want to go to, like, not when they want to go to bed, but what toys they want to play with, which friends they are interacting with, whoever they want to hug or whoever they want to hold hands. Like, if your child is not comfortable with somebody hugging, then let your child not hug them. If they're not comfortable in an environment, don't put them in it. It's really important that we start looking at these things and assess them for what they are. These are examples of children learning how to make solid, independent decisions and to create boundaries that are healthy for themselves. Our daughter, she knows what she wants when it comes to food. If she doesn't like something, she won't even eat it. I remember the first time I made her navy beans, right? And, I didn't know how it was going to go, but I'm like, I like them. Hopefully you like them too. You're my DNA. You're going to like them. She tore it up. Okay, cool. So now I make them more often. So now she has carrots, navy beans. Yesterday she had salmon, carrots, and navy beans. I just put the plate in front of her and I took her for cutlery away and I just watched her. I wanted to see what she would take. She started putting her hands in and she went after the beans first. She started taking the navy beans one at a time, popping them in her mouth, taking a little bit of carrots one at a time, a little bit of fish, and she would take what she wanted. And I was happy to see that at 17 months, my child is able to make a healthy boundary, which is I'm going to decide what I eat right now and what I'm going to consume at what time, And it's those little types of exercises that I find to be the most amazing. Even today, and there's a funny story. Before I was setting up the studio in the house, I had my Rodecaster and it was on, but it was just on the side. And she turns it on. I'm like, first of all, how do you know how to turn on my Rodecaster? So I turn it off. She goes back and turns it back on. My wife starts recording this. I'm like, yo, is she really just turning on my things without I'm like, okay. So I plug it out. I'm like, okay, you're going to turn it on? Cool. But if it's plugged out, no power. So she now tried to turn it on. It doesn't work. She sees that the screens aren't coming on. She's like, what's going on? So she sees what I did. She saw I pull it out. She picks up the plug. And I say to my wife, no lie, I'm like, if she plugs this thing in and turns this thing on, there will be no Wealth Wednesday tonight. I'm going to cancel Wealth Wednesday tonight. I'm going to hang out with this genius of a baby that I have because clearly she's telling me something that she is aware of everything happening. And I just want to get more into that. I want to be like, what's happening here, right? She picks up the plug, y'all. She goes over to the microphone jack, not the actual plug to plug it in. Microphone jack, she plugs it there. It doesn't work. And then she's just holding it and she's getting closer to the section that it goes in. And then she drops it. And I was like, okay, looks like we're going to have Wealth Wednesday tonight. But it just goes to show you when you give children the ability to freely do whatever they want, when it comes to just creativity, seeing things, interacting with their environment, they're able to flourish in a way that's just different than if you were saying, no, this, no, that, or you can't do this, or you can't do that. Like there is a level of creativity that gets lost in translation when your boundaries are so rigid that you don't allow for children to have the opportunity to explore their own boundaries. My wife and I make a really good point to make sure that our daughter has the ability to explore. And I remember when she was a baby, I would always let her touch things. We'd go to the mall, we'd go to the store, the grocery store, and she's in my hand. I would walk up to different things and let her touch it. I'm like, if you want to touch it, go ahead, touch it. And it was a game that we played, but it was something that was important to me because it allowed us to see how she wanted to interact with her environment. She wasn't ever told, hey, don't do this or don't do that. It was more so, hey, if you want to try it, go ahead and try it. It's in a safe environment. We know that you're okay. You can try it with us. It's fine. And I think that's something that generationally we're gonna try to change for her that didn't necessarily happen with us. I was raised in the West Indies, and that was a time right after Jim Crow where our parents were all in the children of folks who were in Jim Crow era, right? Where people are getting kidnapped, equal rights wasn't there, lynchings were occurring, all those type of things were happening, right? So they grew up in a way where it was a lot scarier to be outside. So we had some freedom growing up as kids. Like we would get our bicycle ride. Hey, you can ride your bike all throughout the neighborhood as long as with your friends. But when the sun goes down, you better be back in this house. That was always a thing, no matter where I lived, that when the sun went down, you better be home. Right? And the streetlights come on, start making your way home, right? That was out of, again, the type of fear that they grew up in. Spiritual trucking. Hey, what's going on, God? What's up? What's up? What's up? Good to see you, King. Talking about boundaries today. So growing up, that was what our parents allowed us to do. That was the freedom they gave us. I know God, peace, peace, peace. I know it's you. Anytime I see trucking, I'm like, there's only one trucker that I know. Okay. I know there's more than one that I know, but the one that I really, really know is you. But yeah, they allowed us to have that freedom, and that allowed me to be able to explore my neighborhood. I knew every back street, back corner, whatever in my neighborhood. I was so comfortable there, never felt like I was going to be in danger because I was able to explore my neighborhood. And I think being able to recreate that for my daughter is really important because that's, again, what allowed me to be able to create safe boundaries, all those little things. So, I grew up with that. So my parents did do that, and they did that in a good way too. All right. So one of the other things that the book talks about. And again, the book that I'm referencing, I'm gonna put this up on back on Instagram. I'll post up the book. It's called Set Boundaries, Find Peace, a guide to reclaiming yourself by Nedra Glover Tawwab. Okay. So this book, one of the things that the author talks about is mirror the behavior you want to see in others. Okay. So similar to that, the parable of do unto others as you have them do unto you, the golden rule. Well, this is a twist on the golden rule. It's basically saying, whatever you want others to do, you should be enabling that yourself in every interaction that you have. And let's talk about that for a second, right? If I want others to see me as someone that loves, others, someone that is equal and treats others as equals, someone that, respects people, I should be respectful. I should treat others like they're equal. I should love on people. Right? If that's what I want to see in the world, then I should do that from an inside perspective out. Let's look at Ukraine. Right? Let's look at Ukraine. There's an operation going on right now between Russia and the Ukraine country, right? And right now, folks are migrating from Ukraine, out of Ukraine, into different border countries for protection. And I know you guys have seen the news in my posts. A lot of folks that are in the same issue, same wartime, everyone's trying to get the women and children, whatever. There are folks who are not being allowed to ride on these trains or cross these borders who are Black and brown people, right? Now, this comment says, mirror the behavior you want to see in others, which means that if I want folks to feel like I am a loving, caring person, I should love and care on people. There are folks in Ukraine that they're feeding everyone. They have like muffins, cakes. I've seen videos of, Ukrainians literally stepping up and literally helping everyone because this is a very difficult time for them. But then I see other Ukrainians who are forcing Black mothers off of trains with their children because they would rather have the white Ukrainians ride the trains, right? That's not in line with this. Those individuals that are doing that, those specific people that are doing that, are not treating others the way that they would want to be treated, because nobody would want to be told that their lives don't matter enough to be on this train yet, because another person that doesn't look your complexion should be on it instead of you, someone who's native of this country. Think about America. If America did that, how would this look? How would that look? America's a very diverse place. We have Native Americans, we have, Asian Americans, we have African Americans, we have, Hispanic Americans. We have Americans from everywhere, right? European Americans. Cool. Imagine if we said, hey, there's a war happening in America, and in order for you to get on this train, you have to be a native of America for us to let you on first. How would that fly in New York, in California, in Florida? How would that fly? It wouldn't. It wouldn't work because we'd say, hey, we're all Americans. Stop it. We're all going on this train, women and children first, of any ethnicity. I don't care what you are. If you're a woman and child, get on this train to get on to safety, and the men will stay back and we'll be the last ones. Cool. In Ukraine, that's not what's happening. They're signaling, they're separating out Black individuals that are of African descent from Ukrainians that are not Black or brown. That's a problem for me. Why? Because again, mirror the image that you want to see. So what should these Africans do that are in the Ukraine right now? Should they, if they have the opportunity for the roles to be reversed, should they say, hey, listen, we would want to be treated as equals, so we're going to treat you as equals no matter how poorly you treat us? We always do that. That's how we behave. It's standard living, right? But this only works when everyone does it. This only works when it's a universal law, where folks are saying, hey, I want you to know that I love you, so I'm going to treat you with love. And universally, you're going to do the same to me, because you understand that this is a universal truth for all of us to abide by. Just like the golden rule, do unto others. So it's important that we look at these examples and ask ourselves, if folks are really setting boundaries right now, what type of boundaries are you going to set now, knowing how certain folks move in certain environments? You have to now start looking at your boundaries and saying, okay, well, what does that mean for you? I remember after learning about the French having Haiti pay them off for the slaves that freed themselves, right? After learning that from France, I cut off France. Anything French, I was like, yo, if it's anything French, I'm not doing it. I'm not traveling to France. I'm not spending money in France. I'm not going to buy a baguette. Like whatever is French related, if it's not made in Haiti or on Haitian descent or whatever, or from a French speaking country, I am not interested, because you charged an entire country that was already developing and had a lot of natural resources. You charged them millions of dollars on a yearly basis to pay you as a French government back for them freeing themselves as slaves, right? My boundary was, I want to spend my money in places and spaces that respect my melanin. I want to not represent any country that is willing to put my people under that type of financial bondage and expect it to go over well. No. That's what a boundary is. When we're talking about setting boundaries, this is not just something that applies to your relationships with friends and family. No, this applies to how you interact with the universe and the world in general. I remember that there was a project that I was working on last year, and one of my boundaries was, I'm not going to allow anybody to tell me who I am. I know that I'm putting as much as I can into this project. However, if this person doesn't see the value that I'm presenting to them, then I'm going to kindly step away from that, because that is a boundary for me. I'm not going to let anybody who has had time with me not respect the person that I am and understand who I am after I've already donated time, money, energy to that cause. I'm like, no. I'm going to kindly remove myself from this situation, and going forward, know that if you would like my help, feel free to come and see me. I'll be happy to help, but I'm no longer investing any of my time into this, because you did not understand who I was after 6 months. You have to know that friendships start and friendships pause, and sometimes friendships end. But what you have to love on you. You have to stay true to you, which means that if you know that you're not being treated the way you want to be treated in an environment, whether it be work, philanthropically, financially, relationship-wise, friendship-wise, whatever it is, if you do not like the circumstances that you've put yourself in, then you need to create boundaries that are healthy for you to remove yourself from them. When people say that I date a guy who continues to cheat on me, that's your boundaries that are too loose. When you say that I date a woman who doesn't know how to take care of a home or how to raise kids, that's your boundaries being loose. These are indictments on you, not on them. There's not an indictment on a woman who doesn't want to be a wife. If you marry a woman that doesn't want to be a wife and you're mad that she's out, she's cheating with you, like, why are you mad? She was not interested in being a wife, and you had a boundary of wanting to marry a wife, but you let it lax when you saw her. You're like, oh, she's so nice looking that I'm going to marry her, and hopefully she becomes a wife after she gets the ring. That was your loose boundary. That's your fault. You should not have gone that far with a person that was not interested in the same goals that you had. And because you laxed on that boundary, you are now set up in a situation where now you're going to probably get divorced, and you're probably going to lose half because she probably came in gold digging and she's going to leave gold digging because you tried to do something that was against your own boundaries, right? Same with men. If you see a man that is that's always with women, womanizer, right? And you want a husband, why would you shack up in a relationship with a womanizer knowing that you're just going to be the next woman that's going to be on his list, right? Why are you going to do that? Hey, Heavy, what's going on, brother? Nice to see you there, man. Why are you going to do that? And if you marry this person, or you have a long-term relationship with them, or you have children for this man, and then he decides to cheat on you and have another woman, are you surprised? You let your boundaries down to accommodate somebody who didn't respect it in the first place, and then you're mad when they do exactly what they told you they would do with their actions. You're not allowed to be mad at that. And this is why when I hear women or men talking about the fact that they haven't found the right man or the right woman, or they're just been in, men ain't shit or women ain't shit, or any of these indictments that I hear, right? I look at the person, I say, you're talking about you right now. You're not talking about me or any other person that's like me, because your interaction has been your choosing. And because you're not keeping yourself accountable to your own boundaries, you're veering off into areas that you shouldn't be, looking for things that aren't there, and then getting mad that you didn't find what you should have been looking for in the right places to begin with. Men got to do better. Women, you got to do better. Don't tell me there aren't no good men out here. There's a ton of them that I know. Don't tell me there are no good women out there. There's a ton of them that I know. So why don't you have a good man? Why don't you have a good woman? And they always say that relationships aren't like they don't just happen. They're built. You don't get to just have the perfect husband or the perfect wife because you will it. It doesn't work that way. It is built through bricks, sweat, blood, tears. You build a good relationship. You literally have to start from nothing. And the two of you have to decide, am I putting bricks on this mantle or am I taking them off? I had this conversation with my wife the other day. I'm like, yo, whatever conversation we have, you're either adding bricks to our relationship or you're removing them from our relationship. That's it. And we're trying to build a tower, right? We're trying to go as high as possible. It requires bricks, right? So every time you talk to me, ask yourself, did you put a brick onto our relationship pillar or did you take one off? The more bricks you take off, the more I'm going to not want to be here. The more bricks you put on, the more invested I am to be here, and vice versa. If I'm adding bricks to our relationship in my own interactions with you and with the things that I'm doing for you, then guess what? You're going to want to stay because I'm adding more love units to this relationship. I'm applying myself. I'm going to get you things. I'm going to do things for you. I'm going to show you love. I'm going to do things that are thoughtful. That's adding bricks to your relationship. That's how you build a good one, right? So no one can come here and say, hey, I have a good wife or a good husband without that work. The work was what made it good. Going through the ups and downs is what made it good because you survived it. The first 2 years of marriage are always the hardest. After that, you have a good shot at making it because, again, you were able to get through the worst of times. That is what it takes to have a good man or a good woman. Now, a lot of folks out here do not have the grit to endure that. And you think that you should get a good man or a good woman. Like, you know how many people I've seen from my high school that are single or that are single parents? I mean, no knock to single parents. I mean, y'all are like the hardest working people on the planet. So I'm not talking about that. Ain't going there. I'm saying that at that time in high school, I remember there were some good dudes that these single chicks looked at and said, yo, he's too nice for me. I'd rather get the rough cat. Or no, he doesn't make enough money, even though he's smart, but I don't really want. You literally shat on dudes that were good men who are successful now, who are married now with kids because they didn't look the way you wanted them to look, or they weren't as tall as you wanted, or they weren't enough of a bad boy, or they didn't want to go out to the club like you. Very petty, foolish reasons as to why you didn't go with these good dudes. And now that you're 29, 30, 39, 40, without a man, without kids, and you're wondering, where are the good men at? You passed them by. Same with men. And again, men, you have a golden kind of ability because our stuff works for a long time. You can get married at 50 and still have kids, right? So we have more time when it comes to that. However, most men, as they grow through that, they realize, hey, I cannot spend time or money on dates with these chicks that are just looking for a free meal. I got to find someone that can be a partner that I can build with. And oftentimes, what you find is when you grow up with these guys and they're in their 30s, mid 30s, late 30s, the same women that grew up with them in high school, they're not looking at y'all anymore. We're saying, hey, you're 39, I'm gonna look for 29. I'm like if I'm 35, I'm looking for 25. I'm looking for 28, 29, 30 because I can do that as a man. As a woman, it doesn't work as well. And not because it shouldn't, but because genetically it's not going to work as well. Our bodies are in different time frames, right? So my thing is, any person that is in a position where they're looking for something, you're looking for a family, a legacy, looking for, to create something, to build something with someone else, you've got to look at the character of these people and not just what they're doing right now. Like, look at their characters and their abilities to hold healthy boundaries. Like, this should be a part of your dating conversations that you're having, just as important as what's your salary, or where do you work, or what are your goals in life. Like, all those questions are fine. Don't get me wrong, ask them anyway. But if you can't get into somebody's mind in reference to the type of boundaries that they hold for themselves or for their loved ones, you're not doing your job right as someone that's inquiring for a potential partner. Like, you're not interviewing well enough, in my opinion, right? I never asked a question to my current wife, hey, what type of boundaries do you have with your family? What type of boundaries do you have with your friends? I didn't ask her that, but she told me and I was able to witness it. So thank God I was able to experience that and see that, okay, cool. I see that there's some working areas that we can work on here. Same with me, like there's areas that I can work on here. Great. But we had these discussions. This was a part of our day-to-day interaction. But before my wife, I never thought that those boundaries mattered. I never thought that if my, girlfriend at the time had a very negative toxic relationship with her father, and there was, abuse there in many different ways, if all that stuff happened, I didn't know that that was going to be an indicator of something negative for our relationship. I didn't know that. But now I know that. And it's like, wow, I could have addressed all these things if I had known to look for that. But I didn't. And that was a problem. So for all those folks who are dating right now, the folks who are looking for the right one, looking to establish a relationship with a woman or a man and have a family and have kids, if you're looking for that, I'm going to tell you, first of all, get this book. And I'm going to post this book back on YouTube again. Get this book. Get this book, read this book, and understand that your ability to hold yourself accountable to your boundaries and those around you will be the most important factor to how successful your relationship will be long-term. Because it's one thing to have good looks, that fades. It's one thing to have a lot of money. Money can come, money can go. It's one thing to have, a good head on your shoulders. That's great. But there have been many men who do not have good boundaries with their mothers. Many men have good boundaries with their fathers or with their siblings. And those boundary infractions can infect your marriage if they're not checked. Like, how many women have experienced this where you have a man and you love your man to death, but every time his mom says, hey, son, can you do this, that, and the third, he's running to do that without even asking you questions. He's saying, hey, bun my wife. My mom says she needs me. I'm out. I don't care if you need my mom. That's the first lady in my life. I don't care about, like, imagine if he had an unhealthy boundary with his mother, where he's saying that she's the only lady in his life. You're his wife, but you're second fiddle to his mother. How is that going to help your family dynamic? It's not. As a matter of fact, that's actually going to lead to resentment from your wife, because she's going to feel like you're not invested in her and you'd rather do whatever your mother says than whatever she needs as her husband. That is a big freaking problem. And as a woman, you run into that and you didn't know to look for that. That's your fault. As a man, same thing. If you have a wife or a girlfriend that you're dating and they don't have healthy relationships with their siblings or their spouses or their parents, and then you get involved, guess what happens? Unless you're willing to help them fix those unhealthy relationships, you're going to be the person that is left with the bag in your hand, because now you have to deal with your girlfriend, the toxic relationships, and how it interacts with you. And you can't avoid it because now it's a part of you. So all of this work needs to be done ahead of time in you. If you know how to have and hold healthy boundaries, how to say things like I need, I want, and I expect, when you can hold folks accountable to your boundaries and saying, hey, I don't have to love anything that's happening right now. I don't have to do any of this. If I don't want to do something, I'm not going to do it. So allow me to exist in my individuality when it comes to that, and and respect my boundaries. There are times where people think they need to give you a reason as to why that's a boundary. The book talks about it. It says don't give reasons for your boundaries. You should understand yourself well enough to know why you don't want to do something or interact in a certain way. And you setting a boundary just needs to be adhered. It's not about giving people reasons as to why you have a boundary. It's to hold them accountable to your boundary. So, for example, let's say that your boundary is when you come to my house, your shoes come off at the door. That's your boundary, right? I'm gonna explain to you why I don't want mud tracked around my house. I'm gonna explain why I don't want you to walk through my house when I have a young child and now the dirt from outside is what she's crawling on. Like, I don't gotta explain all that to you. I'm gonna tell you right at the door, yo, you wanna come to my house, take your shoes off, or don't come in my house. Simple. I'm not gonna tell you why. As simple as that boundary is to set, is how every boundary needs to be set in your life. If it's about toxic friendships and you say, hey, if you're gonna be a toxic friend, we can't be friends. Boundary. If it's gonna say, hey, if you're gonna flirt with my man, I'm not gonna be friends with you. Boundary. If it's you're lending money to people who have not shown you responsibility to give you the money back or to pay you back when it's time, boundary. All of these things are boundaries that you guys and gals have to work at, and I have to work at it as well. You can't start giving people money that have never shown you responsibility for money. What are you doing? You are now infringing and you're making your own boundary loose, which means that you're not adhering to your own boundaries. So when you get burned and that person doesn't pay you back, don't be mad. And I'm not gonna feel bad for you because you could have read this book and understood that your boundary was unhealthy and you should strengthen it by doing the right thing. Simple, right? And this goes towards everything. You have to mirror the behavior that you want. So again, if you have a boundary of don't spend my money unwisely, or if I borrow something, I'm gonna give you back in the same, the same quality that you gave it to me in. If that's how you want things to go when it's your stuff, do that when it's other people's stuff. If I take your car out for a spin and I would like to see my car with its full tank of gas, if you took it for a spin, I'm gonna fill your tank up. I remember one time I was visiting my father-in-law and, I took his wife's car out, drove around town, filled up the tank, brought it back and parked it up. And I would appreciate that if it happened to me. And she was like, thank you. I was like, you're welcome. I'm not going to ask you for that money or whatever. No, thank you for loaning me your car. Exhibit the behavior that you want to see in others, but also hold them accountable. And I've had my car taken out and parts of it have been broken, hit, all kinds of nonsense. I'm like, yo, if you're going to take my car anywhere, you better bring it back the way that you got it. And if anything happens going forward, like I remember setting boundaries with certain people, like if anything happens with this vehicle, just know that you will no longer be a part of my situation. I will cut you out. I have done this. And folks have been held accountable to that, and they have not made me have to do that. But my boundary was clear. I stated exactly what I wanted. If you want to borrow my things, do not get them hit by anyone, because if you get into an accident, I am removing you from those things and you will no longer have access to anything that belongs to me. If I give you money and you don't pay me back, you're not getting any more money from me ever. Don't even ask. Period. These are the things that we have to think about, because wealth is not just about money in your bank. It's about your thinking. It's about your boundaries. It's about you doing it in a healthy way. All this matters. So the book again, y'all, we're gonna post this book up. Hopefully you guys go get this book. It's called Set Boundaries, Find Peace, A Guide to Reclaiming Yourself by Nedra Glover Tawwab. I don't follow her on Facebook or on Instagram, but I will after today. And again, this book was a life changer. I'm almost done. I'm in chapter 13 right now, which is the work chapter. You can see it here. But I only have 45 minutes left. So, I can tell you everybody should read this book. And it's not even I'm going to recommend this book as a 10 out of 10. Like, honestly, there are a few books that need to be in your library. Crucial Conversations needs to be in your library. Love Languages, 5 Love Languages needs to be in your library. This book needs to be in your library. The Black Root Science book, volume 1 and 2, needs to be in your library. The autobiography of Malcolm X needs to be in your library. Like, these are books that I wish that women would look and judge men based on their library content as opposed to how they look when they're out in their nice little dapper gear. Like, I want you to judge a man based on what he reads. Women, this is just my opinion. I want you to judge a man based on what he reads. Men, I want you to judge women based on what they think and what they read as well. Like, this should be a non-negotiable thing when it comes to relationships. If I was dating again back in 2020, like if I went back to dating in 2022, I would literally say, I would ask every woman that I dated, hey, if I was single right now, not a dad, not a husband, whatever, if I was single right now, I would ask every woman that I had a date with, So what was the last book you read and why'd you read it? As a matter of fact, what was the last 10 books you read and why did you read it? Let me take out my pen. I'm gonna start writing. Go ahead. Like, I want to know what you're doing with your mind, because to me, I am more interested in your brain than I am interested in your looks, your money, your job, your potential. I don't care about none of that. I don't care about none of that. I want to know what you're putting into this, because guess what? What you're putting into here is what you're going to put into our children. Period. Because I'm not interested in just, physical stuff. I'm interested in children. I don't care about any of that. Children, families, legacy. I'm African. That's how I roll. I don't care about none of the other stuff. So for us, we've got to start putting the energy to what matters most. And remember, if you make the wrong decision when it comes to a partner, that's a lifelong problem that you're going to have if you don't have the tools to fix it. And the beautiful thing about all of this is that you can find books and authors and people that are of your mindset, that want to see the best for you, that have experiences in these areas. And Nedra Glover Tawwab is one of those women. So folks, if you do not have this book in your library by next week, I'm going to have problems with you. If you spent this entire time on this live listening to our boundaries conversation and how we can kill generational curses by literally going into books like this, reading them, and utilizing the tools within them to make your life better, then I have nothing to say to you. You don't want to learn, you don't want to grow if you're not going to read this book. Like, I'm recommending this, and I'm saying it's a 10 out of 10. This book hit me the same way that the 5 Love Languages hit me when I read that book. I was like, dang, so people are really different. Like, I could be loving you, but you don't think it's love because you have a different language. Dang, that's crazy. Like, the same way that my mind was blown with that is how my mind was blown listening to her, because I didn't expect this. I didn't expect her to be this good, But something told me to read it, and I'm glad that I listened to my first self. So let me see what's going on. Hey, Nini, what up, what up, what up? Agent Sam, I say, I'm glad you like it. I'm glad you like it. This is what we got to do. Prayer, meditation, exercising, and reading. Yes, it's definitely important. And not enough people consider that when choosing a partner. Yes, like, we've got to grow our minds, And right now, when you make a poor choice, trust me, it's going to come back to haunt you. So you have to know how to make good choices in everything you do. So we got 4 minutes left. So to wrap up, I'm going to say, folks, get this book. Learn to set healthy boundaries in your work relationships, in your regular relationships, your friends, parents, your partner, your in-laws, your siblings. You need to set healthy boundaries with everything you do. You've got to look at doing things that are going to benefit you mentally, physically, and spiritually. And when you set boundaries around those things, that makes the biggest difference. I remember when I first met my wife, I was into Kung Fu, basketball, driving to Buffalo for my real estate business. I did all these things that were part of me. And after we met, I had to start slowing down all these things because I needed to focus on her and on our current situation. You know what I mean? And now that we have a child, I'm like, dang, I'm still doing this. I'm like, wait a minute, that's not working. You need to add children to your life. You need to add a partner to your life. And they need to add you to their life. You can no longer diminish yourself and remove yourself from the parts of you that helped you to meditate, to eat right, to work out, to be in physical good condition, spiritual good condition. You cannot take those things away to add someone to your life. You cannot take those things away to add a child to your life. When you do that, you're going to lose all of it, because you're now taking away parts of yourself, which you needed to then nurture something, and you don't have all the parts of you there. Think of it as like, I need sunlight, soil, water to make this plant grow, right? But now that I have a new plant, I'm going to focus on this plant. I'm just going to look at it, and I'm going to remove the sun and I remove the water. I'm just focus on the soil, because this is what happens. The soil, this plant, the plant will die because you didn't bring all the parts of you to the plant. The plant is any relationship that you have that's new. If you have sunlight, soil, water, if you have all these things, bring that to your plant and to your relationship and allow them to flourish in it. I have a basketball run next month, sorry. My wife is coming. I haven't told her about this yet, so she's finding about this now with you guys. She's coming, right? We pay for a gym and we go out there and we play basketball. I need to add them to what I do. I need to add them to what's happening in my life, because they're a part of me and they should understand what that looks like. Those are things that I enjoy. Those are things that are part of my personhood. And similar with her, she's adding me to things that she's enjoying. She invited me to yoga, hot yoga. I said no, because I don't want to go. But I said, you can practice with me at home and I'll learn the downward dog and the start Spartan thing and the whatever, all the yoga stuff. I'll learn it right here. And when I'm comfortable here, then I'll come with you. But until then, no, I'm not going because I'm gonna sweat and pull a hammy trying to be sweet. You know, you can't have me sweating and doing awkward poses and expect me to not pull something. Nah, it don't work that way. All right, so you do that, sweat it out. I'll play basketball. I'll work out. You'll come to basketball. I'll come to yoga in the room when you're doing it, and then we'll grow into that together. You've got to have healthy boundaries. You got to be mad about it. It's just what it is, right? So folks, add people to your life. Do not relinquish who you are for a relationship or for anybody. Be the best version of yourself at all times. Allow people to grow with you. And remember, like, they're here to add value and you're here to add value to them. But it has to be done in a healthy way. You have to have healthy boundaries with everybody because it's going to be a requirement for us getting this bag in 2022 and making sure that we're all in the best physical shape, spiritual shape. All of this matters, y'all. All right? So a man thinketh, and so he becomes. So a woman thinketh, so she becomes. So you got to think in a healthy way. You have to have a way to break generational curses, which is if my parents taught me negative characteristics and traits that don't work with me right now, I've got to create a healthy boundary where I still love them, but they need to know that these things we're not continuing. I remember I told my boys I was going to spank my kids when I was growing up. I'm like, I'm going to spank my kids. I don't care. Daughter or son, I'm spanking them. Correction, I ain't spanking my daughter. No. I mean, if she does something, I got to hit her quick, maybe, but it's not going to be a thing like I was beaten, spanked as a kid. Not happening. Why? Because I've come to a different place and space where that was a boundary that was crossed when I was a kid that I'm no longer going to cross. And when my buddy told me this when I was like this 10 years ago, I ridiculed him. And now I'm like, dang it, I understand. That's how life works. Sometimes the same things that you laughed at growing up are the things that you change because you realize that you were just a victim of a boundary that someone didn't set correctly in your childhood. So make the decision and the choice to set the right boundary for your kids and for yourself first. And then everything else will fall into place. So folks, that's Wealth Wednesday. Hope you guys had a good time. Again, definitely make sure you get this book. It is called Set Boundaries, Find Peace, A Guide to Reclaiming Yourself by Nedra Glover Tawwab. I'm actually going to attach her under here so she knows that I talked about her book the entire time. And hopefully you guys got some value out of this conversation. We'll see you guys next week. And again, keep your eyes on this Ukraine and stuff. Like, keep your eyes on everything. Understand that there are boundaries that people are showing you. Like, when war happens or things happen, you get to see people's true colors. You'll never know if someone loves you when everything is good. You'll know it when things are terrible. That's when you know if someone really loves you. And when they show you who they are, believe them and create a boundary that's going to protect you around that situation. So folks, understand this situation that's happening in Ukraine right now. My 2 cents are there is more to it than meets the eye. It is a setup for something bigger, and you need to get your shit together. Get your food sources together, get your money together, get your residents together, get your homes together, get your everything you need right now. You better get that together now, because this is the beginning of something that's going to take away your rights. I'm saying this right now. This is what, March 2nd? Mark my words. This conflict is going to come here eventually in some way, shape, or fashion. When it does, you better be prepared before it got here. So get back into these boundaries, get back into spending your time in the right way, spending your mind, growing it, learning how to do things independently of every society that you are living in right now. Learn to live in your own society. Learn to live and protect your own. Learn to understand that this world that we're living in right now is showing us its true colors. Do not be surprised, but be intentional with where you put your energy, your mind, your money, your spirit, your love, all of that. Don't waste time with waste man. Don't waste time with waste woman. Do not do any of that. Only spend time investing in people, in love, in folks who love you the way you love them, in things that are going to build your family up, and things that are going to build your mind up, things that are going to build your energy. And like, focus yourself right now. Focus yourself right now on things that are beneficial to you and the people that are of your same thinking. That's it. Work on it now. You've been warned. All right, folks. Love you guys. Appreciate you guys. I'll catch you guys next Wednesday. Again, tune in. We do this every Wednesday. This is Wealth Wednesday, folks. This is what we do. All right. Peace out, YouTube. Peace out, IG. We'll catch you guys next week. All right. Be safe, y'all. Peace.